Run, river, run, run through the hills. Run, river, run to the sea. Run, river, run to your place beneath the sun. Run, river, run over me. Run through the land, you run through my soul. Bring me wisdom and peace. Run through.
Hi, welcome to be my guest today. We have a real treat for you. Those of you who know about the Hanover Theater and who doesn't, out in Worcester, and if you're from out of state watching or out of the country, the Hanover Theater is one of the most popular theaters in the East Coast. You can go to Boston, or you can come right here to Worcester and go to the Hanover Theater. We have the usher, one of the ushers and a docent here, Marshall Tate. Welcome, Marshall.
Thank you.
And he made the special trip in today to talk with us about what it's been like for him working at the Hanover Theater. And how I was raised on Broadway tunes. You get to, well, kind of get to see. You're going to explain to us all about this, but how long have you been there, Marshall?
I am in the midst of my second season, so I started the end of the 2013 season. My introduction to the theater, actually, was Jersey Boys. And what a way to get introduced to the theater.
Yeah, is that one of those real high energy shows?
Absolutely.
When we got two different occupations here. As an usher, there has to be more than one of you.
A typical Broadway show, they like between 35 and 40 ushers. The theater holds 2,300 people. We're on two levels, orchestra downstairs, and two balconies, lower and upper balcony. And the reason we have so many ushers is not necessarily to see people, which certainly makes it easier, but if there's ever any kind of emergency, we are all well trained on where the exits are, how to behave, how to get the people out of the theater, where they go and stand once they're out of the theater. So it's more out of caution and evacuation than would be necessary just to seat people.
Well, in the world the way it is today, we ought not to get down, but we know that a lot of us, myself included, if I go in anywhere crowded now, I'm looking for that exit.
Right.
First of all, we're going to go back in time a little bit. Marshall, where did you grow up?
I was born and brought up in Boston.
Oh, you're a Bostonite.
Yes.
Oh, you went to school, and did you go to college in Boston?
I went to Northeastern.
What'd you major in?
Business.
There you go. You're a good organizer.
And then I went out to the University of Missouri for graduate school. And that's really the only time I've been outside of Boston except the military, from a living standpoint.
Which branch were you in?
I was in the Army.
Aha. How'd that go for you?
Well, I was stationed in Southeast Asia.
Yeah.
I was stationed actually in Okinawa, but it was during the Vietnam War. So I supported the guys in Vietnam. I was in the finance corps, of all things.
So you're good with the numbers.
I'm good with money.
Oh, a financier.
And for those of you listening that were in Vietnam, you know that you got paid in what were called MPCs, military payment certificates. And if you left the country, you would exchange the MPCs for what we call greenbacks, so you could spend them if you went on leave either to Hawaii or to Australia. I was the one who flew in the greenbacks from Okinawa that went into the banks in Vietnam so you could exchange those MPCs.
So those guys were pretty happy to see you?
They were very happy to see me.
Yeah,
Yes.
Here comes our pay.
Right.
So, all right, so then you were in the military. Did you have any idea that when you went to college and majored in, was it business, that you would end up doing something and he just absolutely loves it, you could tell he radiates it, being a docent and an usher at Hanover Theater?
Never.
Never.
As a matter of fact, this came up with my wife and I. In the 50 years, let's say from 22 years old to 72 years old, where I would have been going to the theater, I probably went to a dozen plays. In the first year alone at the Hanover, I saw 15 plays. And I'm up to about 70 different plays now that I'm in the midst of my third year. So, no.
You told me I asked him, like, you get to see all these for free, but you set me straight that, not really. Tell us about how that works.
Yeah, it's difficult. Depending upon the job that you have, and in particular if you're a ticket taker, let me back up a ways. When you come to the theater, there are probably 8 to 10 different jobs. You do every one of those 8 jobs in the course of a year, but you do not know ahead of time what you're going to be doing. You're on a list, you look at your name, and it says this is what you're going to be doing. So if you're a ticket taker, where you scan the tickets of everybody coming in, you're at the front of the theater until every single person, every late person is in. Only then can you go into the theater and watch the play.
I see.
Okay. If you're seating people, you wait outside so that you could seat the latecomers. So you actually never really get to see the beginning of any particular show. Okay. Once you're inside, your focus really is on 2 things. Making sure people don't turn their cell phones on.
Oh, God, yeah.
Okay.
That would be awful.
Well, you can be anywhere from 50 to 100 feet away from a person, and as soon as that little screen lights up, you can see it.
And I can hear it.
Yes.
I hate that.
Right.
Yeah.
And if you can see it, you can imagine what it's doing to the patrons around that person.
Yeah.
It's extremely distracting.
Exactly.
The other thing that we are very cautious about is people taking photographs and video of what's going on the stage, because that is just illegal. It's just illegal. There are union rules that you can't do that. So our focus is not on what is going on the stage. It's really what's going on in the audience.
With the audience. What happens, this is a probably lousy thought, but I know growing up I always wondered as a kid, what happens if somebody is sick?
It happened to me 6 weeks ago.
Right there in the audience?
Right there in the audience.
They
It was a family, and they had gone out to dinner prior to the show. The grandmother was getting dizzy and nauseous, and the daughter came down and said, I have a medical emergency. And I said, okay, you stay right here, because I really didn't know where in the balcony.
Yeah. She was okay, they were up
She was
there.
upstairs.
All right.
I said, you stay right here. I'm going to go downstairs and I'm going to get the EMTs.
Sure.
And I got the EMTs and I brought them up, and the daughter was there and directed the EMTs and one of our other staff person over to where the person was ill. She was able to get up out of her seat. They walked her out of the theater. And sometimes just getting out of the theater where it's dark, and it may have been a little bit warm because she was up the row X, the furthest row away from the theater.
You're up high.
Yes. And that could have caused the dizziness. It could have been something she ate.
Yeah.
But once she got out of the theater and had some water, she was fine. But that's the first time that happens.
Did they take her to the hospital? Or
No, they did not.
Did she go back up to watch the show?
She did not.
How do you handle the people around the person? I mean, you don't want to be panicking that someone's sick. That's a real, boy.
You know, if somebody has a heart attack, that's really difficult.
Yeah.
I can't answer it because it hasn't happened to me.
First things first, right? It's got to, that person is the most important
Yes,
person there.
right.
Where I was at the Weighing Theater in Boston years ago, and I was up in the crow's nest, and it felt like I was like looking right. I did not like it.
You have to get used to it.
Ooh, no.
And in addition to the height, you're walking very steep steps to get to those seats.
Yeah.
And I have seen older people really struggle and lose breath getting up to those seats.
Yeah, I don't blame them.
Yeah.
I haven't been up to that part. I've been on the lower part, almost right near the stage, but I was never up that high. And I didn't realize looking up that it was that steep when you get there.
Very.
So you get your exercise. No wonder he's in such good shape. You must be. What do you think? How much miles do you take in a week?
If it's a warm night, I am perspiring at the end of seating everybody. It is the toughest part of the theater to seat people because it's the steepest part of the
Yeah.
theater. It's great for young people. I can't recommend it for older people.
Sure.
But I see it all the time. Once you're in your seat, it's perfectly fine. Come early.
Yeah.
That's the best thing I can say. Come early.
Come early.
So you're not rushed.
What made you decide to? Did you apply to be an usher? What happened? Something turned you. Yeah, you were retired by then, right?
Yes.
I mean, what's retirement? We talk about who
Yes.
retires, but so what happened?
A little bit of an interesting story. Both my wife and I volunteer for the Mass Audubon in Princeton, Mass. Wachusett Meadow. Beautiful sanctuary. by
I
the
believe
way.
we've had them on here too.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
1,200 acres, 12 miles of trails, and what we do is we maintain the trails.
Yeah.
We've been doing it now. This is our 7th year doing that. And we realize that at some point in time we will no longer be able to successfully do that. It would become physically too difficult. So we were looking for some place to put our energy, someplace else to volunteer.
Yeah.
Our next door neighbors had applied to the Hanover when it opened in 2008 to be ushers, and for some reason they were rejected.
You told me about
on
this.
the telephone.
Did they ever find out why or pursue it?
My suspicion is they spent 6 weeks in Florida during the winter.
Uh-oh.
That's the height of the Broadway
I
season.
think so, yeah.
And if you have 2 people that are going to Florida for 6 weeks and 2 people that are not, you're going to take the 2 people that are not.
Sure.
Okay. Anyway, the story stuck with us. And my wife said, "Do you remember the Hanover and our neighbors applied?" And I said, "Of course." She said, "I think I'd like to try that." And then I said, "I don't know if I want to do it." Because again, in the prior 50 years, I've only gone to 12 plays. But I also knew that she would be getting out late at night.
Yeah.
10 o'clock, 11 o'clock. And one of the performances we went to, which was a concert actually, we didn't leave the theater until 1 a.m. in the morning.
Why?
It was an African group called Peace Squared. They were from Nigeria. And their custom is to call for the show to begin at 9, but it really doesn't start until 10:30. And that's what happened. It started at 10:30 and it went till 1 in the morning.
Did the audience know this ahead of time? I would have been like, oh.
They did, because they were familiar with the
Yeah.
group and they were familiar with the custom.
Yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful group of people. I mean, I was just so impressed with them. I mean, because they were there from 8 or 9 until 1 in the morning. That's a long time.
Yeah.
We as ushers, however, have to be there an hour and a half before the theater opens. So if it calls for 8 o'clock, we're there at 6:30.
Yeah.
So we were there at 6:30. The show doesn't start until 10:30. It doesn't end until 1. Anyway, the point was that I was uncomfortable with my wife being out that late and driving home. So I said, "I'll tell you what. We'll both apply, and we'll see what happens."
Yeah.
Okay.
Bingo.
Bingo.
You just fell in love with it?
I did.
How many times being an usher did it hit you, or did it hit you right off?
It hit me right off.
You just loved it.
I'm going to back up again. Being accepted as an usher, you go through an interview process, and they ask you a series of questions. Do you have 4-wheel drive? If there's a storm, because it's the winter time, can you get to the theater? Because the show must go on. Number 1. Number 2, if there is an emergency at the theater, will you put the lives of the patrons ahead of your own? Now that's really serious stuff.
Yes, it is.
But it's a necessary question to ask. Number 3, and you covered a little bit earlier, are you physically capable
Here
of
we
going
go.
up and down stairs
Yeah.
to see people? Are you physically capable of going up and down fire escapes? Okay, so let's go back. You get accepted.
Yeah.
You then go through 2 days of training. The first day, which is really a half day, it's 3 hours, it's in the evening, it's from 6 to 9 or 6 to 9:30. They go through all the policies of the theater, and they give you a small tour of the theater, rules and regulations. That's great, that's easy. They tell you what to do if a person has a cell phone, we were talking about, and they refuse to shut it off.
Oh, what do you do?
Well, okay.
All right, okay.
But let's get back to the second training lesson.
Yeah.
Okay, there's a number of things you can do. My experience has been the first time most people shut them off. Okay, not a problem. However, there are situations where that doesn't happen. So you go back a second time and you try again.
Brutal.
If that doesn't work, we have on each floor of the theater what's called a house manager. You go get the house manager and you explain the situation.
My God.
The house manager will ask that person to please come outside to the lobby. And they discuss it with them. And if the person says, well, I have a sick child at home and I need to know, they say, we understand, but you are disturbing every other single person around you. You would ask them if they have to check their phone to please go out in the lobby.
Yeah.
And that's legitimate. So it's a series of escalations, hoping that it never gets to any one of those escalations.
But if you're an usher at the back, let's say the show started and everybody's seated, and the ushers are in the back, how do you know? I mean, you can still hear it, and you can see the light
I
lighting
can
up
see the light.
in the dark.
Oh, it's incredible.
And then what you try to figure out who it is, and they shut it off.
Well, they don't. You're behind them. They don't know.
They don't know.
And if they shut it off within 5 seconds,
That's okay.
That's okay.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not going to get involved.
God.
But I just think of not only am I an usher, and not only am I a docent, but I'm a patron.
Yeah.
And I have been in the theater watching it. It happened with. We just went to Fleetwood Mac.
Oh,
the concert.
Yeah.
And it happened to us, and we were patrons, and it was the people in front of us. So it impressed upon me the need for me and my wife as ushers to do a good job, because it matters.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely. Now, a docent is different than an usher. Explain how you got into that.
Okay. And a docent is different than a tour guide.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
A docent, it happens to be a German word that means teacher. So a tour guide could go through the theater and say, well, there are the seats, and there's the stage, and there's the orchestra pit, and there's the emergency exit. The docent, however, would say to you, here's the stage. This was built in 1906, and this is the person that built it. And let me show you the different layers of it. It teaches you about the theater.
Yeah.
Last April, the theater decided they wanted to start giving tours. And they picked 6 people that they thought would be good at interacting.
Oh, definitely you. I mean, there's no doubt. Oh, yeah. You have a calm, very self-confident way, very non-threatening.
Oh.
That would appeal to, I think, anybody going, oh, yeah, definitely.
So I shouldn't be a police officer.
I think you're too gentle for that.
Okay. So they picked 6 people and asked us if we were interested, and we said yes. And we had a meeting with a preservationist, Susan Shikori, and she's kind of shoot me because I'm probably ruined her name. We met with her, and we met with the CEO of the theater, Troy, and we could come with questions, and we asked questions about the theater. And we also got a chance to meet with the operations manager and the production manager. These are the people that are behind the scenes. Okay. And then on our own, individually, we just did research on the history of theater, when it was originally built, when it was sold, when it was demolished and rebuilt, and who the architect was.
And it is beautiful. People who haven't seen the Hanover Theater, can you show us some pictures? You brought us. You brought
yes.
some. Yeah, definitely. Let's zero in on what you. Franklin Square. Now, what does that mean?
The Franklin Square Theater was actually built in 1904.
So we can maybe get over there to that one, Paul, and check
Okay.
that out.
And if you look at the Hanover Theater now, straight on, this still exists. This entranceway still exists.
Is it stained glass, Marshall?
Very interesting story.
Yeah.
When Showcase, this is an hour and a half dosing tour here.
Okay.
When Showcase Cinemas took over the theater in 1967, 1968, and then they showed movies there for 30 years until 1997, 98. They removed the stained glass windows.
Huh.
It is now plain glass.
Oh, okay.
So
I
when it was
see.
turned over, they made the theater a charitable contribution to the theater in just around Christmas time 2000. Okay. Everything else is there. This is not there. But pretty much everything has been restored as much as possible. This was 1904. It stayed this way actually until 1925. This was the entrance to the theater.
My grandfather, Mike, he graduated at Clark in 1908. I'll bet you he might have been in there watching a show, and his parents maybe too. Who knows?
It's very interesting. And this was a 1,700 seat theater, and they had celebrities and performers come from all over the world. The highlight of the theater was in 1906 when Sarah Bernhardt came here from Paris, France, to perform Camille. And she did 2 performances, standing room only,
I'll bet.
wonderful reviews.
Oh.
So
Now this is the more modern pictures coming up, right?
yes,
Well, that's Pole's
this is
Palace.
Poli's Palace.
That's what it changed to?
Sylvester Poli purchased the theater in 1912.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
It stayed essentially this until 1926. This was demolished virtually in 1925 and rebuilt as Poli's Palace, 3,500 seat theater, designed by Thomas Lamb, who was the premier theater palace architect virtually in the world.
Wow.
He has theaters all in England, Australia, North Africa, Egypt, India.
Yeah.
Today, they still exist. This was opening day, Poli's Palace. This was November of 1926.
Now, folks, what we're talking about is the Hanover Theater, and you're seeing it as it grew.
Right.
All right.
Went through a series of hands. It went through Fox Theaters, Lowe's, not Lowe's, Lowe's Theaters. I got to be very careful because there are 2 chains,
Right.
Lowe's and Lowe's. Went through Lowe's Theaters, and then I went to Showcase Cinemas, which is the brand name for National Amusement or Redstone Theaters. Okay, Sumner Redstone, who is alive today. He's 92 years old.
Just a kid.
He's interesting enough. Boston native out of Dorchester, lived in Chestnut Hill for quite a while.
Yeah.
His daughter now runs the theater, Sherry Redstone. She actually visited the theater in 2011. They closed the theaters in 1998 and went to Showcase Cinemas North, which is exit 2 off of 190 North in the Greendale section.
Right, yeah.
15 theater megaplex.
When did Poli's shut down now?
1998 in Worcester.
And now this is when the next picture is when it came up again?
Again, Poli's went to Fox.
Went right through the
He
thing.
sold it.
Yeah.
Sylvester Poli sold it in 1928 to Fox. Fox in 1934, well, they went into bankruptcy. And Lowe's bought it. Lowe's kept it until 1964. They sold it to a small company in New Jersey who only kept it for 3 years. And then they sold it to Sumner Redstone. Okay, and that stayed from 1967 to 1998. And it closed in 1998. And 2 men, Ed Medaus and Paul DeMoga, saw a for sale sign on the theater and said, wouldn't it be nice to have Broadway musicals in Worcester. So
I think I read about that in the late 90s,
yes,
way back in the paper.
yeah.
Are they still the owners?
They're not the owners because it's a nonprofit,
Yeah,
but they are the founders.
the founders of it.
Yes,
Okay.
they are very much
All right.
around. They are very much patrons of the theater, and two wonderful human beings.
I want to make sure that everybody knows who I am talking with. I have the honor of talking with Marshall Tate today, and he is a docent and an usher at our Hanover Theater right over in Worcester. I read about him in our Worcester paper, on a Sunday paper, and I said, this is great. Show us the next one.
Okay, theater closes 2000. Showcase Cinemas gives the theater to Ed and Paul as a nonprofit. They take it. They raise over a 2-year period $31 million to restore the theater, because the theater has essentially been destroyed. It was turned into this beautiful palace into 4 movie theaters.
Yeah,
okay?
that'll do it.
Yeah.
That'll do it. And then we have our beautiful.
And then they
Now we've got
reopened the
this.
theater
Mm-hmm.
March 14th, 2008.
Put it down a little bit, but there you go, and then we'll zero
Okay.
in on that. And that's where I've been. I remember
Yes.
going right in those doors.
It opened with Bernadette Peters.
Amazing. Now, parking, people have to go to a parking garage near there, right?
There's a parking garage right across the street,
Okay.
511 spaces.
Okay.
If you come on a Saturday or Sunday, there's actually no difficulty parking
Okay.
on the street.
All right.
Okay. I want to get back to the second day of training.
Go for it.
Okay.
All right. We've
This
got
is
about 3 minutes left. Go for it.
Okay, it's important. There are approximately 240 ushers. For one day, we all come in and we go through every single emergency evacuation exit. From the top of the theater, we go through the doors, down every single step of the fire escapes. We come around, go back in the door, the front door, and go to the next one. And I think there are 15, I'm guessing.
Right, right.
Just up the right-hand side,
Yep.
back in, up the left-hand side.
So
It
people are
takes-
very well trained.
very well trained. Everybody knows. As a matter of fact, oftentimes those floor managers I referred to earlier will go around to every one of the ushers before the show and say, if there's an emergency, tell me where you're going to direct the people to get out of the theater.
And you know that by rote. You have to.
You have to.
Marshall, how could they get in touch with you or find out something about the theater? Are there any openings for any ushers?
Okay.
Tell them that.
Good question. You probably cannot get in touch with me personally. You can get in touch with me through the theater. David MacArthur at the theater is the best person to get in touch with. He is our operations manager. Everything in front of the curtain is under the management of David MacArthur. A theater is broken between behind the theater, behind the curtain, and in front of the curtain. Every August, we are looking for we're going to be looking for new docents, but new ushers as well, because we're looking to expand both.
An age range, Marshall?
There is none.
Okay, all right.
Unfortunately, the job is best for people that are retired, because you are working Wednesday nights, Thursday nights, Friday nights, 2 shows on Saturdays, 2 shows on Sundays.
You got to be available to get there.
Exactly.
All right. And your children, having little children at home, that'd be tough.
Right. There will be a form on the website probably each August. You submit your name, and they will call you, the theater will call you for an interview, and you go through the interview process.
How can people reach you if they would like to talk with you about your experience? Is that all right?
I'd rather they do it through the
Okay,
theater.
how could they reach the theater?
Okay. Website. This is important because people easily don't do this. It's thehanovertheater.org, O-R-G. It is a non-profit organization. We're not in the business to make money. And oftentimes we don't make money. The last 2 years we've lost money. The years prior to that we've made money. That's not our focus. Our focus is community, diversity, and getting as many people into the theater as possible, not because we make money, because we want people to understand that this is a gem and it's in central Massachusetts, and to overlook it is it's a sin. It is such a beautiful place, and when you go in there you have a special so
I remember it. It was much more peaceful than I thought. I liked the way it was set up. It had a nice
Yes.
feeling to it.
Yeah.
It really is. It's like a home for you, right? A second home.
It's becoming that. If you don't have the money to go to a show, please go to one of the tours.
Is that free?
If you're a member, it's free.
Okay.
If not, it's $5.
Oh, that's pretty good.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we'll be starting the tours next month,
Okay.
the 16th and 26th of March. The 16th is a Wednesday, and the 26th is a Saturday. So we're now, if you're working, you can come on a Saturday to do
And
the
you'll
tour.
be there.
I'll be there, 10:30.
How many docents? You and...
There are 6 of us in total.
So we've got to hustle and get in line to be with Marshall.
Well, no, we're all there.
Okay. Oh, you all go together.
We all go together because what we find is oftentimes people are, they can't walk. They need walkers.
Sure.
And the theater is very accessible. So we have elevators. But we like some of the docents to go with the people that
That need that.
that are going to be a little bit behind on us. Also, we set up pictures like this all over the theater
Yeah.
so that people can see what this place looked like
Oh, yeah.
110 years ago.
Yeah. When my grandfather was roaming the streets of Worcester. Marshall, I wish we had more time. We got to get you back on again. Thank you so much for being on, okay?
It was a pleasure.
Hanover Theater. It's quite a history, and it sounds like a lot of fun. We'll see you next time. I'll be my guest.
Run, river, run, run through the hills. Run, river, run to the sea. Run, river, run to your place beneath the sun. Run, river, run over me.